Tomorrow, Bungie is hosting the Destiny 2 Year 2 reveal, and quite honestly, this is the biggest thing to ever happen to Destiny 2. Why? Well, whereas Expansion 1 and Expansion 2 were well into production long before Destiny 2 ever launched, that is not the case with Year 2 and DLC 3. This expansion and this Year 2 content update will be the direct result of the criticism that we have given for Destiny 2. This will be Bungie's chance to fix the game. How will they do it though? And what things should they do and how should they communicate those things to make this a successful unveiling? That's what we're going to talk about in today's video. And so, let's get started. What is up guys, Rick Kakis here, and today we are going to be discussing what Bungie needs to do, what they need to talk about, what they need to show in tomorrow's Year 2 reveal to make it a successful event, to properly address the community's concerns and the problems with Destiny 2. Again, this is a big moment. This could literally be the point where the ship starts to turn, where things start to get better, and then with, of course, the launch of DLC 3, that could be the turning point. That could be the thing that really rejuvenates the game, that fixes a lot of the problems with Destiny 2. If you're someone who has left the game, who is saying Destiny 2 is dead, it's trash, I don't like this game, who's already in the comments typing out a paragraph, I understand, Destiny 2 had a lot of problems, and I would never hold it against anyone who did leave the franchise or left the game with Destiny 2, because my goodness, it did a lot of things wrong. But of course, it'd be nice if they fixed the game. It'd be really nice if Bungie could address a lot of these endgame concerns, a lot of these loot system concerns, and so on, and make it so that Destiny 2 is a proper sequel to Destiny 1. Destiny 2 builds off and continues the Destiny 1 success rather than, honestly, does the opposite of a lot of things. So this, again, is a big day. What should Bungie do? Well, there's two things that they absolutely need to do right off the bat. These are two things that are general things that should apply to every single content addition, every single change that they talk about. Number one, be specific. Bungie has talked a lot about things coming in the future. Oh, we're going to introduce randomization. We're going to change the weapon system. Well, what exactly are you doing for weapon randomization? What exactly are you doing for the weapon slot changes? This is the time for Bungie to tell us exactly what they're planning to do, down to how many perks are going to be in the new gun system, what kinds of perks that are going to spawn there. Again, they need to be specific. We've had, months and months of them being vague. It's time to get into the nitty-gritty. But number two, this is the second thing that will apply to every single change they talk about. They need to be willing to change. Bungie is doing this Year 2 reveal pretty early on, to be honest. I mean, we're getting the next expansion in September, so it's quite a while until that point. Why? Well, they want to get into the E3 hype, which is understandable, but it's a double-edged sword. Having this much development time between now when things are unveiled and all the way till September means that they have the power to change things. And that means that if they unveil something, if they unveil the new gun system, and we as a community go, that's not good enough. We want more perks. We want more customization. They have to actually be willing to go in and change it, and add more perks, and add more changes based on community feedback. Again, they should be able to reveal things, and hopefully they will have done their research and done some play testing, and the things they reveal will be good off the start, and we don't have to say, no, we want more, you can change that. But if we do say that, they need to be willing to alter these things. They cannot stick to their guns and have a flawed system all the way to September. No, they need to change it if the community deems something worthy of change. That's another very important factor. So keeping those two things in mind, that Bungie needs to be specific with the things they show, and they need to be willing to change and alter the things they show leading to September, what things should they show? What things should they go over? What things should they present at the Year 2 reveal? Well, today, we actually got a brand new teaser for the Year 2 reveal. Here it is. As you can see, it shows a Hunter Guardian and Cade 6 landing pretty clearly on the Reef. So, Reef confirmed, Cade 6 is going to be part of this expansion, but frankly, I don't really care about that. I know it sounds weird to say, but I really hope Bungie does not spend too much time on where we're going to go, the characters, the storyline, because frankly, that's not the things that are going to fix Destiny 2. I ruffled a lot of feathers in my Warmind review when I said Destiny 2 is not really a story-based game. And I didn't think that having to explain that playing a campaign once and then playing other aspects of the game for the other 99% of your playtime would indicate such, but yeah, guys, I'm sorry to, again, ruffle some feathers, but where we're going, with the characters, all of that stuff involved in the expansion is not really what we need to know. What we need to know is, for example, what they're doing to the loot system. That is a thing that's going to fix Destiny 2. Having Cade 6 telling zingers is not going to fix Destiny 2, I hate to say it. Now, with me saying that, by all means, Bungie should show more information about the storyline and the setting of the expansion, but that should not be the focus. The focus should, number one, be, like I said, the loot system. Now, the loot system, there are several aspects that absolutely need changing. Number one, what are you doing to the weapon system? Now, Bungie says that they're going to add randomization in the development roadmap. But what do they mean by that? Again, they need to be specific and they need to be willing to change when they unveil that, but they need to show us exactly how they're adding randomization. Because just adding randomization to the current loot system would be a terrible idea. Why? Well, look at the static rolls. Look at, for example, hand cannons or SMGs that belong to the same archetype, or the example I always use, the 450 rounds per minute auto rifles. They're basically random rolls of one another. The Uriel's Gift, and the Positive Outlook, and the Number, and whatever other gun you want to imagine. They have almost identical stats, they just have different perks, and therefore, they're the same exact gun with different rolls per se, different perks that you can get on them. So if Bungie is going to introduce randomization back into the loot system, they have to dramatically alter how the weapon system is laid out. There needs to be multiple main perks. If we compare what was available in Destiny 1, you could get a palindrome hand cannon with rangefinder and Icarus and explosive rounds. I mean, for goodness sakes, the Fatebringer had explosive rounds and Outlaw and Firefly. The Better Devils just has explosive rounds. How far we've fallen in this loot system, how dumbed down this loot system has become, and that's a huge problem. And that's why the guns don't feel as special, and that's why, you know, every time we have desirable weapons like the escalation weapons, they're breaking the rules, right? They have multiple main perks, they have unique perks, they have stuff that other guns cannot get, and therefore when Bungie tries to introduce normal guns like the Iron Banner guns, they're really undesirable. So Bungie needs to straight up show us exactly what is changing in terms of randomization and a new gun system, hopefully going into what a new gun layout would look like, going over all the perks, all of that stuff. That's very important. But speaking of weapons, they also need to show us what exactly they are doing to change the weapon slot system. In Destiny 1, having primary, special weapon, and then heavy weapon gave you so much more power potential than essentially having two primaries and then a heavy. You could have a sniper and a rocket launcher, or a sniper and a machine gun, or a shotgun and a sword. All of that stuff increased your damage output significantly when compared to Destiny 2, where, you know, you're primarying something down for an extremely long time, or you have the heavy ammo to spare, thankfully. And they've promised changes to this system, so it's going to be really interesting to see what they're doing, but hopefully it's going to be a significant improvement in power level and capabilities and customization, all of that stuff. And this is one of those changes where they really do need to be specific because it has such a ripple effect. If they're introducing a specialist weapon category again, and they're moving, let's say, snipers and shotguns out of heavy weapons into the specialist category, that changes a lot of stuff. What balancing changes are going to be made to accommodate that? You know, are they going to be lowered in power? Are they going to be kept the same? What about ammo considerations? All of that stuff needs to be answered, because otherwise we have a lot of questions, more questions than answers, frankly, for a big change like this. But moving on from there, Bungie needs to talk about how they're unlocking the other 50% of the loot table. And by that I mean armor. Right now in Destiny 2, armor means nothing. Nothing. Armor is purely cosmetic, because you can find raid armor with the exact same 2 little perks as faction armor, as Iron Banner armor, as planetary armor, as whatever. And the one thing that differentiates raid armor with the raid perks being applicable, the same raid perks are on the same 3 sets of raid armor. So raid armor from Leviathan has the same perks you can get as the raid armor from Spire of Stars, as Eater of Worlds. The armor system in Destiny 2 is absolutely depressing, and it needs to change. Back in Destiny 1, we had raid armor with unique raid perks. The gauntlets from the Wrath of the Machine raid had a perk where fallen enemies would drop more heavy ammo. That was a big deal, and that was a very desirable piece of armor. We almost do not have desirable pieces of armor in Destiny 2 whatsoever, aside from people who want that armor because of cosmetic reasons. But Bungie, you're going to have to do better than that. You're going to have a return of armor that has unique stats and unique perks, and you need to unlock that other half of the loot system that right now is completely dormant. Honestly, those are the 2 biggest things for me. Fixing the loot system would fix the majority of problems for Destiny 2. You wouldn't get bored and find you have nothing to do. The endgame would feel more fulfilled if you still had weapons and armor to go out and grind for, whereas right now you certainly don't. But speaking of endgame, I really hope they do get into the nitty-gritty details about what they're planning to do for endgame with Expansion 3 and with Year 2. What new game modes might they be adding? How are they changing raids in the future? How are they going to implement prestige raids and so on? We still don't have prestige for the 2 raid layers, and it keeps being said as a later, oh, we'll get to it later, we'll get to it later. What are they doing with that? Like, way back in the day, they talked about how they were going to have specific loadouts, like you would have to go in a certain week with a hand cannon and a scout rifle and a sniper rifle, and then they would have a specific rotating modifier, so it would have something like precision damage dealt more than usual. But are they still doing that? Are they deciding to change that? They need to get into what exactly they're doing in the absolute endgame content. It's pretty ridiculous that we've been going without prestige raids for months now. Speaking of raids, it would be really nice to know what they're planning to do with future raids. I thought Leviathan was a great raid, but I didn't really like having 2 more raid layers after that had just a tiny fraction of the loot that should have frankly been in Leviathan. You know, Eater of Worlds has the 2 weapons, the shotgun and the grenade launcher, and then Spire of Stars just has the sidearm and the fusion rifle. I mean, back in Destiny 1, when we would get a raid, when we would get something like the Wrath of the Machine, it would have its own entire loot pool, not just 2 weapons. I think that does need to change as well to make raids in the endgame more desirable. And the last thing I want to see in this reveal is quality of life changes. Deleting multiple shaders at the same time, or a specific place to store your shaders. My Postmaster is basically doubling as shader storage. Like, it's kind of ridiculous, and they keep adding new shaders. I already don't have room for the shaders I have, let alone new shaders. Speaking of, what about ships and ghosts and so on that you really don't have a ton of room for? They have to go into your normal vault that you would prefer putting weapons and armor in. A recent quality of life thing that came up is, why can't I matchmake in Patrol with 6 or more players? That would be a really sweet thing if they were going to add that for the next expansion. It would also let them have more crazy escalation type activities in the game. In addition, what changes are they planning to bring to PvP and the ranking system? I mean, right now, I think everyone agrees it's pretty dumb that when you join a game in progress and you're already losing by a ton, that loss will still count towards your win-loss ratio and your win-loss streak and stuff. I mean, like, that shouldn't even be a thing, right? Will Bungie finally try a solo queue and all of that stuff? That would be interesting to know as well. it's definitely less important, but addressing a lot of these main quality of life concerns would be, I think, a great point to nail home for the community. And guys, I mean, that's really it. That's really it. And I think that these are things that we really do need to hear. If this reveal comes and goes, and we don't know what specifically they're changing with the loot system, and we don't know if and how armor will be changing, and we don't know what exact changes they're making to the weapon slot system, I think it'll be a failure, because the main concerns for the community will still be out there. You're not quelling these concerns, you're basically exasperating them because people will think that you haven't addressed these concerns. Now, with that being said, I really do think Bungie will nail on a lot of these points. I just hope they stick to those two principles. Be specific and be willing to change. If they do, this will be fantastic, and come September, Destiny 2 will be thriving yet again. But we'll just have to wait and see. Guys, that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed and found this informative. If you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. And if you guys want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickCacus. That's linked in the description down below, as is my Twitch channel, which you can also follow. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.